I'm calling the meeting to order, regular meeting of the governing body for January 25th, 2023 at 5:10 in the evening. Let's begin as we do with the Pledge of Allegiance from Councilor Romero Worth, salute to the New Mexico flag from Councilor Lee Garcia, and invocation and remembrances from Councilor Chavez. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I wanted to talk about something that I have just acknowledged recently. So I've noticed recently that I had been acknowledging and appreciating the light people offer. I find myself often thanking people for their light in their kindness, understanding, guidance, knowledge, and love. All those things really guiding me in so many different ways every day. Our world can be heavy and dark these days, often bringing out the worst in us. So it makes sense that when an individual shines in one way or another, I would take notice. I want to thank those individuals because their glow has encouraged me to be intentional in allowing my mind and heart to shine my light and contribute to brightening up what has been darker days. I wanted to remind our community and my colleagues of the power of the concept of light, and encourage awareness and attention about how we project ourselves. For how we shine will guide us in love, in good, in leadership, and in positive change. I encourage us all to see the light and to be the light. As Amanda Gorman wrote in her poem, The Hill We Climb, for there is always light. If only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. May we all be brave enough to be in our roles as leaders, and most importantly, in our roles as community members that light our world so desperately needs right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there remembrances? Someone you'd like to mention? Go ahead, Councilor.
I would just like to take a moment to recognize those lives lost during senseless tragedies this past week. Violence is never a course of action, and we as a community, and most importantly, we as elected officials, need to make sure we do everything we can within our authorities to prohibit and eliminate violence from our communities.
Thank you, Councilor. Other individuals or circumstances you want to call to mind? Let's take a minute, think about people in our own community who are dealing with suffering, dealing with mental or behavioral health issues, struggling with financial issues, struggling with these hard times, as Councilor Chavez mentioned, and keep them in our prayers and in our hearts, and try to do as she suggested and add light to our community every day. Thanks, everybody. Please take a seat. If you have a cell phone that's on, could you please make sure it doesn't ring? Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Yes, Mayor Weber,
Present.
Councillor Cassett. Here. Councillor Chavez. Here. Councillor Lee Garcia.
Here.
Councillor Michael Garcia.
Present.
Councillor Lindell. Here. Councillor Rivera.
Here.
Councillor Mayor Worth.
Here.
Councilwoman Villarreal.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Before we approve the agenda, are there any changes to the agenda? Madam Clerk.
Mayor, we need to remove item 15A. It's the introduction of a resolution.
Okay, so that would be taken off tonight's agenda. Any other changes to the agenda as it currently exists? If there are no other changes, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
There's a second and a motion. Is there discussion? Can we please, all in favor, say aye?
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Madam Clerk, for the consent agenda, what are we looking at?
Yes, Mayor, we had two items removed from consent, item N and item O.
By,
Item N was removed by Counselor Rivera and Counselor Lee Garcia, and item O was removed by Counselor Lindell and Counselor Lee Garcia.
thank you. Can I get a motion to
Mr. Mayor.
approve the, yes,
There's two items I need a request to be removed, one to abstain, one to recuse. So
could
it's
you,
quick removal to quick action.
which ones are we talking?
Item B as in boy, item L as in love.
Both B and L are being removed from consent by Counselor Michael Garcia. Thank you. Other changes to the consent agenda? In that case, can I get a motion to approve consent as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. But for a minute, we're going to be hung up on that. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll on the motion?
Yes, Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Marworth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes,
Motion has been approved.
very good. Thank you. Madam Clerk, the next item on the agenda, please.
That is presentations. We have a presentation for the audit update for fiscal year 21 by Emily Oster, our finance director.
Director Oster, you have. If the mic works.
Good evening. Yep, it does. Thank you. Good evening, counselors. I'm pleased to let you know that we've completed our first on-site visit with the external auditors from Carr Riggs Ingram. They were with us all day on Thursday last week. They are working on FY21 and FY22 audits simultaneously. They spent their time documenting processes and internal controls, and we've been following up on questions and continuing to meet with them as we have done virtually for some time now. We are reviewing the federal grants. They're starting with the federal compliance audit, also known as the single audit. Again, working on both years simultaneously, which will give us some efficiency. This is very normal and typical of the audit process. We're progressing as I would expect at this stage. We are also continuing to work very hard with our Clifton Larson Allen audit prep consultants, making progress on 21 and 22. They're also involved in answering questions and working with Carr Riggs Ingram. And those are my updates for this evening.
Thank you. Are there questions for the director about the audit progress? Yes, Counselor Lee Garcia, you have the floor.
Mayor. Good evening, Director Oster. As far as our targets in regards to, I think June is when we're expected to have both of them complete. Is that we're still on?
Mr. Mayor, Counselor, yes, that's the timeline we're working on.
Okay, and feeling still very confident that we're gonna hit that.
Mr. Mayor and Counselor, yes, we're progressing as I would expect at this stage in the audit.
Just a quick question. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. Madam Clerk, could you take us to the next item, please?
Yes, Mayor, our next item would be item 9B. That was removed by Counselor Michael Garcia. It's request for approval of the December 21st, 2022 special governing body meeting minutes.
Counselor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just request to remove because I wasn't present at the meeting, so I'd like to abstain from voting on the matter.
Is there, having heard that, is there a motion on this item?
Move to approve.
There's a motion and there's a second. Is there further discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Yes, Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell.
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Marworth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes,
Minutes have been approved.
thank you. And then the next item, please.
Item L, it's request for the approval of the state of New Mexico aging.
Hold one sec.
Do I formally abstain because I got skipped? I want to just make sure it's on the
You
record.
want to make sure that the reason to pull it in the first place was so that he go on record as not voting in favor of minutes at a meeting at which he did not participate. Did you want to record him as an abstention or as a skip?
Mr. Mayor, I'd prefer to be an abstention vote.
Could you,
Remember, counselors, we can do that, but abstentions just don't count. So it doesn't really, there's not really, and they generally go in favor of whatever is being voted on.
well, if he, the point is that I
You can
think,
recuse.
Although I will just note that for the minutes, we haven't noted that this item was removed by Counselor Garcia, so he could abstain.
That's fine. I'm just going off past practice where when counselors aren't present, we abstain from the minutes
That's
and I'm
fine.
just following traditional practice. So
I think you could offer him the opportunity to cast an abstention.
Sure. Counselor Garcia, would you like to formally abstain? Counselor Michael Garcia.
abstain. Thank you.
Thank you. I noticed that too, Counselor, that we didn't get that recorded. I interrupted you, Madam Clerk. I think you were reading item L.
Yes, sorry, Mayor. Item L is request for the approval of State of New Mexico Aging and Long-Term Services Department grant agreement in the total amount of $268,841.12 for the foster grandparent, senior companion, and retired senior companion volunteer programs with a term ending in June 30th of 2023.
And before I entertain a motion, Counselor, you had a reason to pull that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to recuse myself from this item as I work for the federal agency that hosts these volunteer programs.
Great. So we'll let you step out. And then we will bring you back. On
Move
this
to approve.
There you go. There's a motion and there's a second. Is there discussion? Seeing no hands, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Or Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett. Yes. Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes,
Motion has been approved.
thank you. Could you, I guess, city manager's bringing Counselor Garcia back. Good. Counselor, it passed. Madam Clerk, can you take us to the next item that was pulled?
Yes, Mayor, the next item, sorry, that was pulled was item N. And this is a resolution relating to firearms, recognizing that certain city properties are used for school-related activities, which makes the carrying of a deadly weapon on such properties a fourth-degree felony pursuant to New Mexico NMSA, 1978 7 -2.1, and directing the city manager to work with staff to post notice on such facilities.
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion, there's a second. Now I'll turn the floor over to the two council members who asked to take this, so it wasn't on consent. Counselor Lee Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. I basically pulled this. Obviously, I was not in support of this at the last committee meeting that it was presented. I believe that we need to do everything in our power to keep people safe, and I think that is what the intention here is. Well, my main concern is with this is keeping us out of any type of issue of people contesting our actions here. And again, I'll read this from the New Mexico State Constitution, Article 2, Section 6, right to bear arms. A law shall abridge the right of the citizen to keep and bear arms for security and defense, for lawful hunting and recreational use, and for other lawful purposes. But nothing therein shall be held to permit the carrying of concealed weapons. No municipality or county shall regulate in any way an incident of the right to keep and bear arms. And I know the intent of this is to notify people that if there are school age children sanctioned, we need to post signs, or we're to post signs. The first part of it is I would like to say I disagree that this will work. I do think that I think this opens up for us for litigation at some point when somebody contests us. Do the signs come up and down when there are school activities? Is the wording on these signs going to be appropriate in terms of how it directs people to the state statute that we are trying to follow here? And so those are my big concerns, and that's the reason that I pulled it. And so I'll yield the floor from there. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe Counselor Rivera, you also asked this to be taken off.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I initially approved this at Finance Committee, but upon further thought, thinking along the same lines as Counselor Garcia with the constitutionality of it, that being a big concern. And then another one is how are we going to be able to enforce what we're doing here? Initially, I supported it because all it was doing was enforcing current state law that allows for this to happen. But then it became a question of public school sanctioned events. And those events aren't always occurring at our facilities. And then there was also a question about what about other schools, Catholic schools, Methodist, Christian schools? For some reason, they wouldn't be protected, only public school sanctioned events. Maybe that's why the signs would be staying up all the time. But I think, again, the issue of potential litigation, I'm not sure it'll fly that test, but I'm sure that'll come later. So, thank you, Mayor.
Counselor, are there others who want to speak to this item at this time? I think Counselor Michael Garcia has his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick couple questions. I think it was at our Public Works and Utilities Committee meeting, I had asked for an example to be provided of the Albuquerque signs. Were we able to track down an example and see what a sign looks like that's currently being used? Like, because I know we're referencing Albuquerque's done it and using that somewhat of as a foundational argument why we can do it. And just to, I would just like for my own curiosity and maybe the public's curiosity to see what signs are currently installed in Albuquerque.
Director Ochoa?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Garcia, I was not able to track down that sign. My understanding in conversation with the city attorney is that our sign would reference the state statute, but beyond that, we don't have the verbiage of it yet.
Okay.
And Mayor Weber, councilors, the article that I sent out to everybody does have a picture of the sign that initially Albuquerque used. I don't know if they're still using the same sign, but I understand based on conversations with council that the signs should still be up. I don't know if they're the same signs or updated signs, but there's a picture of one of the original signs in the newspaper article that I circulated.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Director Ochoa. Thank you, Madam City Attorney. And the reason I ask is because the state statute we're referencing for this resolution references deadly weapons, not specifically firearms, but deadly weapons. And when that's such a broad category, immediate thoughts come to mind. And I think I brought up these concerns in prior meeting. Deadly weapons, what is that? And I mean, immediately, well, besides a firearm, what could be considered? Knives, anything sharp, that type of stuff, mace. I mean, is that considered? And I think, do we have a full list, a broad list of what we are considering a deadly weapon? Because should somebody walk into a facility and a police officer then issue them a citation, I would like for folks to know that, hey, we gave a warning that X, Y, and Z items for us as a city are considered part of this deadly weapon list.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Garcia, I'll defer to the city attorney on that definition of deadly weapon.
However, counselors, I did offer to answer this type of question at any time you had it. So I was not asked this outside of right now. I am aware of whole cases analyzing that question because it comes up in many statutes. So it's a type of statute that's enforced in many contexts, not just this one, regularly by the police.
Okay, so we don't have a list though, because I guess my question is, for example, if you go into the Joseph Montoya building across the street, deadly weapons aren't allowed in there, and items like mace. Whereas, you know, I know, for example, when my wife would go visit me there, she had mace in her purse because she wants to protect herself at all times, and she had to leave that in the vehicle. She didn't know that that was not allowed, and I'd hate for a citizen to be put in that situation where they're carrying an item that is not allowed, and they now are facing this 4th-degree felony citation. And I think I would hope we would have some type of clarity besides firearms, I think, which would be a given. My colleagues earlier brought up the issue of, you know, the challenges with when school sanctioned events are being performed. And with City Hall being on that list of one of the identified locations, we would install such a signage here. I'm thinking just kind of immediate conflicts that might come up where maybe a contractor is coming in to get permitting stuff done at land use, and they have something on them that might be considered a deadly weapon, such as a knife, an X-Acto knife. You know, these are common tools used by contractors. And so according to that, and that's where I was asking for clarification around deadly weapons, because I'd hate for a contractor or somebody coming in to get a permit to then be in trouble because they're doing their job. They're coming to get plans like they have been doing for the last decades, and then they get in trouble. So how do we plan to resolve issues like that?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Garcia, I would imagine that deadly weapon would need to be defined on the sign so that people would be able to be clear on what was allowed and not allowed, but I'll defer to the city attorney on any additional information.
Mayor, Director Toa, there's a case interpreting deadly weapon for that statute. It was written in 2009 by Justice Daniels. That's what I thought it was probably about. So there is a definition that's been thoroughly discussed in that case. That case was about whether a pocket knife was, and they determined it wasn't. But there's quite a bit of analysis that exists on that topic. So we can definitely cite to that.
And Mr. Mayor, Councilor Garcia, if I could add, I have a definition from the police, what they determine deadly weapon. Thank you.
Sure.
C. Champlin, if I can read that to you, it may be helpful. Deadly weapon means any firearm, whether loaded or unloaded, or any weapon which is capable of producing death or great bodily harm, including but not restricted to any types of daggers, brass knuckles, switchblade knives, bowie knives, poniards, butcher knives, dirk knives, and all such weapons with which dangerous cuts can be given or with which dangerous thrusts can be inflicted, including sword canes and any kind of sharp pointed canes, also slingshots, slungshots, bludgeons, or any other weapons with which dangerous wounds can be inflicted.
Okay. Thank you, DC Champlin, if you're back there. Again, doing so the public is well aware, because this is, I think we're moving forward with an existing law where at this moment, based off the interpretation from the city attorney, if anybody in this room had a deadly weapon, they would be in violation of state law and would be issued a citation, 4th-degree citation. I mean, if this didn't pass, the law still is in effect and somebody can be cited. And I think that's where there's some confusion right now in the public that with this action, we're approving new laws. We're not approving any laws, correct, Director Ochoa?
Mr. Mayor, Counselor Garcia, correct.
Okay, and again, just for clarification for the public, because we're proposing to install signage that brings about awareness of the existing law. Okay, thank you. No other questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there other comments about this resolution and its implications? I think Counselor Garcia, his last statement is absolutely the case. We have an existing law on the books that prohibits deadly weapons from arriving in buildings where there are school sanctioned or supported activities. We're simply saying we intend to make sure the public knows city buildings and facilities where those activities are taking place and alert them to the fact that deadly weapons are prohibited from those venues. And it is a statement of purpose. I think it's an intent to do exactly what Counselor Garcia talked about in his invocation remarks. We have just witnessed another round of horrific killings with more innocent people slain. And I think we are at a crossroads as a nation and as a community. We have to take a stand. This is a way of making a statement and enforcing an existing law. I personally support additional legislation. I went to see the governor today and assured her that she has my support with her slate of bills in this legislative session to go further than we have as a state, to make sure that lives are safe, kids are safe, families are safe, and that weapons are kept out of the hands of people who should not have them. I regard these as common sense public safety measures. And we are asked by our constituents as the highest order of our priority to emphasize public safety. With this resolution, we are responding to that request from the public that we take their public safety to heart, and we will do everything and anything we can to protect our kids and our families at a time when there is untold carnage in cities across America. Other comments or questions? Madam Clerk, do you want to call the roll?
Yes, Mayor. I just want to confirm, I have Counselor Merrill Worth with the motion and Counselor Chavez as the second. Was it Counselor Cassett or Chavez?
We're at the same time.
That's kind of what, that was my
She can
clarification.
take it.
Okay. I had you both down. Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell, Counselor Rivera, Counselor Merrill Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
No.
Mayor Weber.
Yes,
Motion has been approved.
thank you. Thank you, Director. Could you take us to the next item, please?
Yes, the next item is item O. It's consideration of a resolution sponsored by Mayor Weber, Counselor Cassett, and Counselor Chavez. It's a resolution adopting the Midtown Community Development Plan for the Midtown Redevelopment Project. Lee Logston, our Midtown Asset Development Manager, and Mr. Rich Brown, our Community Development Manager, are available. Director, sorry.
Okay, I think before we go to anything else, I would entertain a motion and then we'll go to discussion.
Move to approve. Second.
There's a motion to approve and there's a second, and now we will go as counselor.
Mayor, I just wanted to know, I'm fully in support of this. We did significant,
Yes.
what I'd say stylistic grammar and other changes. And I sponsored a lot of those in partnership with staff, and they're currently not in the packet.
Yes.
And so I guess I'm wanting to understand or maybe hear from my colleagues about their appetite to go through them. Because you haven't seen them. And so I'm wondering if staff had a solution to this.
However, counselors, could we flip this on the agenda with something else? I'm on page 3 of 4 of these amendments. Some are full paragraphs, but most of them are very technical.
Motion to lay this on the table?
Second.
Is that what you want?
Mayor Weber, that works, because that means just put it to the side until we're ready to address it. Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Mayor, on that
Councilwoman.
point, on that motion, I'm just also wanting to let folks know that there are things that you haven't seen yet, and it may take time. And we don't necessarily have time tonight. So I I don't want to delay this because I think it's important we move forward. So I'm okay with putting it aside for now, but I'm just letting you know that I don't know how many pages were there of,
12, Mr. Mayor.
Well, Mayor, councils, I have about 3, I think, that would be moving forward.
I think the council was talking about actual rewrites of the language in the document itself that changed some of the stylistic expressions and other passages. Help me here.
Mayor, council, most of them are technical. There's a couple places with full sentences, full paragraphs, but most are technical.
and on that point there, yeah, I agree. They're mostly stylistic grammar, formatting changes. There is a section that I had requested about definitions so people understand certain steps that will happen as it relates to this plan. And I think they're important to include. So I don't know if we want to wait till later and include those at a different time. I don't know what that process looks like, but
So Mayor, councilors, on those, the definitional ones, there's no chance that we'll get to those tonight. So if we wanted to look at those, we will not be able, I won't be able to make any sort of recommendations about them tonight.
Mr. Mayor.
But
do
there's
have-
3 pages that are not
I think
those.
part of the challenge is we have
Yes.
translation going on because there was a request for that specifically for
Yep.
this item, and we've got a significant group of folks who are here
Community.
specifically for this item. So why don't we lay it on the table for the moment and then see where we are moving forward? Is that acceptable as a way to try to move forward? Okay, let's vote on the motion, please.
Thank you.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
yes, to put it aside to come back in a bit. Do we have a
yes,
time
this
frame?
is the motion to lay on the table. We had a motion by Counselor Cassett and a second by Counselor Worth to lay this item on the table.
They said yes, thanks.
Yes. Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
What's the definition of laying it on the table?
Mayor, councilors, I don't know if I have a definition off the top of my head, but basically it means that we set it aside until you'd like to deal with it, but it comes up again during the meeting is the idea. It's not a postpone to a different meeting or a postpone indefinitely is to essentially not address something again. Postpone to a certain date would be a specific time or date. This is just to set it aside during the course of the meeting to bring it back up. It is not debatable. It is the highest priority of any subsidiary motion. I can get you a definition, but basically the idea is that it comes up again during the meeting, but we're not ready to address it right at the moment.
Did I hear that it was 12 pages?
Mayor, Councilor, you may have heard that because it did get said. It is 3 pages that I'm working on.
I'm going to say no.
Yes.
motion has been approved.
Okay, we'll lay it on the table and move forward on the agenda and try to get whatever needs to get done so we can put it back off the table.
Thank
as
you.
quickly as possible.
Thanks.
We have people here who want to address it. We have a translation service to provide additional language, so we ought to try to make accommodations to get this going. Yes, Counselor.
All right, I'm just realizing. City Attorney, did you say that you probably wouldn't be able to get to all the change? I'm just worried about tabling it and then we're making individuals wait longer when there still can't be a vote because not all of the amendments have been considered. And so I don't know if we could.
Mayor, Councilor, I think it's maybe a discussion as to whether or not those other pages are needed at this time or not. And I can't offer you much on it because it's a lot of text.
That's just what I'm worried about. I'm worried that we're gonna make individuals wait because we're tabling the meeting, but then we're gonna decide that all of that does need to be considered and then we're postponing anyway. I'm just bringing that up.
Let's bring it back as soon as we can. What's the next item on the agenda?
Mayor Weber, the next item on the agenda is item 10A. It's consideration of a resolution sponsored by Councilor Michael Garcia, Councilwoman Villarreal, and Mayor Weber. It's a resolution adopting a strategy for donating or selling at.
Point of order. I believe we have something else on consent, don't we? Oh, that's Midtown. Okay, my bad. Sorry. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I lost where I was.
Just start over.
A resolution adopting a strategy for donating or selling at below market value a property identified as Las Estrellas, Track 6A, to a developer certified as a qualifying grantee under the New Mexico Affordable Housing Act to develop Santa Fe homes, program homes, low price dwelling units or units price restricted through another affordable housing subsidy, and approving an announcement to sell the remaining 7 Las Estrellas lots with a local preference. And again, Rich Brown is available for this item.
Can I get a motion before we go to discussion?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion to approve and there's a second. Let's go to Mr. Brown to introduce this, and then we'll have discussion with the council members.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome to this evening. This amendment has been approved. There's apparently a couple of amendments that are going to be reviewed tonight. This is in reference to our local preference issue that we have with this sale, this public notice sale. And so I just wanted to say that we see it as a policy decision. And so we're ready to move forward with this public notice, and we're ready to answer any questions that one may have about the amendment.
Councilor Katzen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Villarreal, Councilor Michael Garcia, and I had been working on an amendment, but it is quite comparable to the amendment that Councilor Romero Worth and Councilor Lindell have proposed. So rather than potentially wait for our language, I think that it might just be, we were going to have a discussion about both of them anyhow. So if it is okay with the co-sponsors of my amendment, I would think that we can just take it from here and discuss some of the differences. Does that work for both of you? Okay, that was all.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilor.
I'd like to move the amendment by Councilor Lindell and I,
Is there a second?
and me, I guess.
So there's a motion on the floor to take up the amendment that has been proposed by Councilors Romero Worth and Lindell. That motion was seconded. So Councilor Romero Worth, you want to walk us through this amendment so we can, I'm reading it, but can you, for the public who may not have it in front of them, give us the what the amendment is designed to do and how it would fit into the resolution?
Thank you, Mayor. I think there were a number of concerns that we're trying to address with this amendment. One of them is the concern that a local preference might be used to purchase the property, and then that new owner would turn around and flip the property. And so we are trying to protect against that. I would say the other objectives would be, we want to incentivize the actual development of the property. And we want to protect against the property. We want to protect against the local preference being used if someone wants to buy and hold the property. And I guess I would, in terms of how this works, I might defer to staff if that's okay, because I think there's a little bit more expertise about how this would work. But we would essentially add to be it further resolved clauses to accomplish our goals. And I don't know, Counselor Lindell,
Counselor
you
Lindell,
want
do you
to,
want to speak to it?
add
You're-
on to
You're
that?
also a proposer of the amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Counselor Romero Worth. I think that Counselor summed this up well. I mean, what we don't want to see is for someone to purchase this with a local preference and hold it or turn around and sell it. We want to see the project begin and move forward. So that's what we were hoping to accomplish with this amendment.
Thank you.
Mayor.
And I think Mr. Brown or
Salazar.
others who are there, if you want to speak, I think Counselor Merriworth was looking for some technical.
I mean, I could read it, but
Yeah, I think that-
maybe if you could
Yeah.
speak to it in concept of
Sure.
what it essentially adds to what we already have.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Merriworth, I'm going to ask our legal counsel, Andrea Salazar, to speak to the technical aspects of it, but I can add more color to it.
Mayor, councilors, so the intent of the amendment, there's two sections of it. One is to prevent the resale within 3 years, utilizing a letter of credit that would be obtained through a bank. The proposal is for it to be in the amount of 2% of the purchase price. So that letter of credit, after a purchaser obtains it with their local preference, would then have to provide a letter of credit to the city so that they could draw down against it if they do not meet the 3-year mark. The same is, it's similar in the next provision, which is a 5-year provision to start building out and developing either spine infrastructure, utility infrastructure, engineering. If they do not do that within the 5-year period, there would also be another letter of credit in the 1% amount of the contract price that could be drawn down against that.
questions? Yes, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to my colleagues for putting forth something that was addressing the need to make sure that local preference is, for lack of a better word, sustainable. And so what I want to just understand, because these terms are not necessarily terms that I know of, but the property, having it for 3 years, can you say more about this section that says the purchase agreement shall require the purchaser to secure this requirement with a letter of credit in the amount of 2,000 of the contracted purchase price?
2%,
Sorry, what did I say?
2,000.
Oh my gosh, 2% of the contracted purchase price. Can you explain, isn't that, we've done this kind of practice before, correct? Can we give an example of where we've used this method?
Mayor, Councilor Villarreal, we use it often in our LIDA projects. So within our project participation agreements, once we move forward with an ordinance, we have securitization. There's a lot of different ways to securitize those types of agreements, but one that's very simple is a letter of credit. So the entity obtains a letter of credit, meaning they have to put down the amount requested. It's held within the bank. The bank gives us a note or a piece of paper that says the city has the authority to draw down if they don't meet the provisions of the agreement. So the purchaser would have to do that, go to a bank, obtain this, provide it to the city, and then we would utilize it and hold it for the 3+ year period. If it, a day after 3 years, they do not sell it, then we would authorize the release of that letter of credit. Same would go for the next provision.
Got it. Okay. And the other provision is when the purchaser is awarded the local preference and they begin development of the property, including spine infrastructure, engineering, and utility development. That's within a 5-year period of completion. And that note of that letter of credit in the amount of 1%, is that a separate letter that I guess I'm just trying, like procedurally, what does that look like? There's 2 different letters of credit within their financing institution.
Mayor, Counselor Villarreal, that is correct. They'd be holding 2 letters of credit. So technically, this could be a potential of the first one, the 2% would be $100,000 letter of credit. The second one would be a $50,000 letter of credit. They would have to hold the 100,000 one for the 3-year period. The second one, the $50,000, they'd have to hold for a 5-year period. And this is the start of spine infrastructure. So shall begin development of the property of infrastructure. If they do that within the 5-year period, we would release that second letter of credit.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. No further questions on the amendment.
Thank you. Counselor Michael Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just got a quick question, I guess, for the sponsors of the amendment, and this is in regards to the second, be it further resolved. Is there any reason we can't include any purchaser? Because this one solely targets those that qualify for local preference, but I think whomever buys this property, we should hold everybody accountable to developing this property within 5 years. Our community is in deep need of housing, and to only stipulate that if we utilize local preference, you've got to immediately begin to develop. Whereas if a private entity not using local preference, they can sit on it. And I think we should encourage everybody, whether it's local or non-local, to develop the spine infrastructure within 5 years. So is that something that you all considered?
I think,
Mr. Mayorworth.
thank you, Mayor. I think what we're concerned about is if you purchase this property because you took advantage of our local preference, we want to make sure that 1, you don't flip it, and 2, that you start development. If you don't take advantage of our local preference, then I think it's your prerogative what you decide to do with it.
Any other comments or questions? Counselor Cassett and then Counselor Lindell.
I'll just speak to some of the differences that we had. I'm curious about the timeframes of 3 and 5 years. I wanted a longer time frame and not being able to sell because I don't want somebody to kind of wait out the clock. So I think our amendment had a 10-year provision on there that they can't flip within 10 years. And then for the development, we did have 3, although I do understand that that might be a bit of a small time frame considering the challenge of this terrain. So just wanted to hear a little bit about why you both chose 3 and 5 for these provisions.
Rich, do you want to address that? I think, well, go ahead and then I'll add on.
Okay, Mayor Weber, Councilor Cassett. I think the advice that we gave to the sponsors was that the 10-year period, the 3-year period is first and foremost the time where, based on, economic cycles, one could or could not flip the property. But on an infrastructure build side, it's going to take more than 3 years to really get it going. Development financing, getting your vendors together, starting that spine infrastructure. So the 5 years were what we said would be the time where you'd start to see shovels on the ground. You would not see them in 3 years, probably. You'd probably see them within 5 years. Whereas within 3 years, you could flip the property because you could say, I'm going to wait, see what the market's doing, and go from there. But for 10 years, that's quite a long time because it's holding capital for a very long period of time.
Okay, can you go back to that one though with the economic cycles and why 3 years feels like a good, I mean, again, I want to make sure we protect against flipping.
Yeah.
And if 3 years is.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. This is an assumption of example is that normally recessions take about 18 months. So when you look at capital that's in the market, that up and down time, they have a look at that. They forecast out how long will that take. So in a 3-year period, that's about 2 recession cycles, if one would happen. So that's still enough time for them to pull the trigger or not, because they could say, I'll make a sale then or not. That's why the 3 years was set out there. But on the longer period of time for infrastructure, in 3 years, a lot of that would not happen. There's a lot of permitting, vendoring, surveying, engineering that needs to be done. A lot of planning needs to be done. So that's why the 5 years is sort of I guess, a medium mark that could be in place where one could be putting shovels in the ground and having heavy equipment out on the site.
Okay, thank you so much. One of the other differences that we were, Andrea and I were just discussing, and I would like to hear the opinion of staff as essentially the penalty for breaching these provisions or this provision for selling would be that they would then owe the city the percentage of the contract price that they received as a local preference. So if they received 3%, they'd have to pay back the city. They'd have to pay the city the 3% that they were awarded in their RFP, 6% and awarded back in their RFP. So I'd be curious just to hear from staff and of course, just from the rest of the governing body about that as opposed to the line of credit or a letter of credit. So if I could get some, as Andrea and I were discussing, it's, how do we balance both the simplicity as well as trying to make this as secure as possible? And so I would love to hear your thoughts on these.
Mayor, Councilor Cassett. So the real difference is that a letter of credit is almost an immediate thing. So you would be able to draw down should they violate it, whereas a breach of an agreement, that means the party or the purchaser would have to give you 3 or 6% of what their contracted price is. You might have to go to court, file a breach action. Sometimes that doesn't happen automatically. It could require litigation. So I think it's what you want out of the penalty. So do you want it immediate or do you want something that might require some type of litigation?
Right. And then litigation could also cost us money too. So, okay. Thank you. I appreciate that, Rich.
Mayor Weber, Councilor Cass, I want to add one more thing. I think that to your question. So the local preference dollars, the 6%, the 3%, 3%, it's an inflated number to your actual purchase price. So we're not giving that money to anyone. We're using that purchase price. That's the original purchase price is where we start with that letter of credit. We don't add the 6% on top of that purchase price because it's just an artificial number for evaluation.
Yes, I understand. Thank you, though. That's good clarification. And yeah, we also in ours did not stipulate that only somebody with a local preference would be subject to the 3 or 5 year on starting development. For me, I think that it's really important that we are selling to somebody who is committed to moving forward with this development and to moving this project forward. So I would be interested on that provision applying to all purchasers. Because I think that, we know this is a hard project. We know that this is going to be really challenging. So I want to make sure that people are coming to the table that are really ready to do this work and to take this on. So that's my thought on that differentiation there. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Other questions or comments at this time? Councilwoman Varial.
Thank you, Mayor. So to clarify for what you just said, Councilwoman Cassett, are you suggesting that second provision should apply to all?
Yes.
Yes.
Not
so-
just local preference.
So we talked, Councilor Garcia brought that up and I actually agree. We're really thinking about the overall holistic aspect of this development of the property. And so why wouldn't the sponsors of this amendment consider that as a amendment to the amendment?
I guess, as we know, the portion of this property that we're talking about is the 7 tracks that are very, very difficult to build on. And if somebody wants to buy them and leave them as open space, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. And I'm curious whether, for me, it was, if you're going to take a local preference in order to be the winner of purchasing, you should be required to build. But if you're not going to use that government enticement, then I don't want to get in the way of property rights for people who want to just buy it to buy it, or have other ideas. And I guess, I don't know if there's any, I mean, if we don't have if you don't use the local preference, can we tell you, you have to build in a certain amount of time? Is that legal? Is that constitutional? Is that due process? Do we have that kind of control over a property owner?
Mayor Weber, councilors, these would be terms of the offer for sale. You would have to be willing to agree to these if you wanted to bid. So you wouldn't be an owner yet when these were imposed. They'd be imposed before we even took offers.
And we can control the property like that, even if we're not providing a government incentive for allowing you to purchase.
Mayor Weber, councilors, I think we can put these types of terms in the request. I think it's just whether or not people will respond anymore. You might not get any responses.
Yeah.
I also think, let me interrupt for 1 second, Councilor, and then I'll turn the floor to you. I'm looking at this application. It specifically talks about the local preference. I think these two provisions are designed to, if you ask the question, what problem are we trying to solve here? I think the problem we're trying to solve here with these provisions is, first of all, to make sure that the local preference doesn't get misused by someone who would potentially turn it into a profit play. And secondly, that they would be committed to using the local preference to do the work of building housing. I also think we have a question, which may or may not ever come up, of whether or not the local preference as it's in this resolution somehow runs afoul of the anti-donation clause. And having these stipulated in the resolution, holding it to people who use the local preference could help cure any concern over the anti-donation clause blowing the whole thing up. It's a demonstration that we are getting something for our willingness to provide the local preference. We're getting something back in return. That is not really a constitutional issue if it's just a market transaction. So I think the crafting of this amendment is very specific to solving two very specific problems, whereas requiring a market purchaser to build within a certain period of time may very well be within our rights. I can't remember when we've done something that's a land use case, or we just voted on a land use case for a zone change. We didn't say to the developer, you have to build housing within a specific amount of time. Now, we weren't selling them land, but there was never a concern that it was our governmental responsibility or interest or power to say there's a clock ticking and your zone change doesn't apply if you don't build your house right away. So I think we're curing a very specific problem with these very specific amendments. Councilor Garcia, Councilor Lindell, and then Councilor Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Councilor Romero Worth brought up something that I keep in the back of my mind on this, the open space. Someone could buy this and just leave it as open space. Whoever buys it that wants to develop it, we have track 6A, it'll be affordable housing, but the rest of this property has stayed vacant for many, many years for a reason. And that is because a lot of it is horribly hard to build on and horribly expensive. When we talk about housing issues with this particular property, these houses are going to be really expensive because they're going to be really expensive to build. I don't think anybody that's gone out there and looked at it or had conversations about it in the past with different people. These will be very expensive houses. This is not the housing of workforce. This is not workforce housing that we're talking about. Track 6A is affordable housing. It's a dedication, and that's terrific. But the rest of this property, and I suspect that this property will be purchased by, if someone takes a local preference on it, it'll be more than one person and some kind of syndicate of people. And it'll be interesting to see how they split up the lots and who gets what, because a lot of them are, a vast majority of them are very hard to build on, and some of them are just all but impossible to build on. Somebody will build on them, but it comes at a cost. So I think that speaks some to if someone were given the local preference, or if someone just purchases it without the local preference. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Garcia,
Thank you,
and then
Mr. Mayor.
Counselor Rivera.
I think one thing to clarify here is this is unique situation in the sense this is not a private entity transaction. This is the city putting up its own property for sale, which, as I've said in the past, this is an extra tool in our tool belt. So I would hope that when we put this on the market, we encourage development. We encourage homes to be built. That's the priority. We're in the middle of a housing crisis, and I know my colleague had said these aren't going to be workforce houses. Well, maybe it allows for somebody to move out of their home into one of these homes, which and then frees up another home. I think we should be doing everything we can to encourage the development of this property. One question around affordable housing for the 7 units, it still would apply for these units, whether or not somebody sits on it or somebody works to develop it. There's still the requirement for affordable housing to be developed unless they pay the fee in lieu of option. Am I correct?
Mayor, Counselor Garcia, if I parse out the question, you're asking whether the master plan requires people to build out the affordable housing.
Correct.
I think that is correct, that if you start developing the residential, you have to include the affordable housing. I don't know if there's a requirement to build, meaning someone could come forward with, they purchase it and they amend the master plan and decide, hey, I'm not going to build any of this portion. Or they could continue to hold the master plan and just not build for a while. So there's no, you have to build once you purchase. But if they start building, they do have affordable housing requirements already in the master plan.
Correct. And I apologize if I was implying that there is currently a stipulation that they have to build. I think that's what we're debating now. And I agree, this property, the terrain is tough, but I would like for the city to encourage the development, and maybe we double that for private owned property to 10 years. For like we're doing with 6A, 5 years. The remainder of those 7 parcels within 10 years, there has to be this similar type of spine infrastructure, engineering and utility development. We as a government should be doing everything we can to encourage home ownership opportunities and home development. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. No other questions.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Rivera, you've been very patient. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Brown, you said it in previous meetings and I think tonight too about the 3% and then the 3% totaling the 6.
Correct.
Can you explain a little bit more where those 3%
Came from?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to ask our legal counsel because she worked with the local preference numbers on that. So I'm going to ask Andrea to speak to the 3%. They're 2 different categories.
Mayor, Counselor Rivera, so there are two abilities to get a 3% increase. One is whether you hold a Santa Fe County or City of Santa Fe business license for a period of 3 years or more. Sorry, let me just bring this up. There we go. The second is you can receive a local preference if you provide a New Mexico Tax and Revenue Department resident business certificate. So you have to apply to New Mexico Tax and Rev for that certificate, establishing that you are a resident business, and that means you're a business within the state. They have specific provisions, and I believe you have to have paid taxes for a certain period of time to the state of New Mexico to obtain it.
All right, and if someone does qualify for the 6%, you said it's not real money, right? It's just a benefit that they get for having these two things that get 3% and 3%.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Rivera, that's true. What it does is it allows your bid to have a bonus number, 3%, 3%. So if you came in at $5 million, you'd have 6% above that. So that in the evaluation period, it would say one of the evaluation criteria is, did you meet the appraised value plus or over? And that would give you that 6% if you just came in at the appraised price.
So then what this amendment really does is take one of those preferences out of the way and converts it to actual real money that would then go into a letter of credit or be considered a letter of credit.
Mayor, Counselor Rivera, so it technically does convert an amount of money into a letter of credit. So the current amendment that's on the floor talks about 1% and 2% of the purchase price. So that would probably be equal to the half if someone received a 3%. The amendment that Counselor Cassett was talking about previously was directly correlating to the amount of local preference you would have received, that's the amount that you would be due. So those correlate.
Okay. So again, since this doesn't apply to all bidders, only those that try to take advantage of the local preference, it really is taking the local preference in half.
Mayor, Counselor Rivera, yes, it is utilizing the local preference as something that you have that enforces your ability or your requirement to hold the property and to build it out.
Okay.
Mayor, Council,
Point of
you still would
clarification.
get the local
They-
preference.
You
And if
don't
you,
lose the local preference, nor are you losing money. You are simply putting in effect something in escrow and meeting the criteria of the local preference and this proposed amendment. If you meet them, your local preference is all good and you get your money isn't lost. So it's simply in effect, an insurance policy that the local preference will be utilized for the purpose for which it was intended. There's no financial loss to the person who got 3 or 6% local preference.
But that letter of credit is half of what the total local preference would be.
Mayor Weber, Councilor Rivera, keep in mind that the local preference amount is a paper amount. They're not actually adding anything to that until they're chosen and be ready for disposition. So that's when the letter of credit says that you'd have to take 3% of that's the purchase price, not your local preference price plus the purchase price. It's actually what the purchase price would be.
But the letter of credit is actual money that has to be held.
Mr. Chair and Councilor Rivera, that's correct.
Can I speak to that, Pete?
Councilor Romero Worth.
Yeah, and I was a little bit concerned about asking a local developer to have a line of credit. But as we were talking about this, I think it does a number of things. One, I did when this idea was first brought forward several years ago, I actually did get support from banks, local banks, saying that they wanted us to do this. So, you know, I think it gives another mechanism for a local bank to participate in the economic windfall of this property. But it also, I think, helps us with the other piece, which is we've talked about purchasing the property is, you know, one thing. You know, I think we've talked about its appraised value is somewhere in the $5 million range. And that the real challenge in developing is going to be securing and we've heard different numbers and we've gotten emails about different numbers. You know, we're saying somewhere 30 million, 50 million to be able to actually put the infrastructure down in order to build. We've also talked about how difficult this particular piece of this property, we're not talking about the affordable housing piece, the 6A piece, we're talking about the 7 tracks, how difficult that is to build on because of the terrain, the steepness, the arroyos, the floodplains. And so to require these lines of credit as our insurance policy for making sure that the local preference is used in the way we want to see it, you know, solving the particular objectives that we're concerned about. I think if you have the ability to get this local preference, that also speaks, I think, to your financial wherewithal to actually do what we want to see done, which is purchase the property. If you're local, you get the local preference, but you also have the capacity to work with this very difficult piece of property and actually get the infrastructure down so that it can be built upon. Thank you, Mayor.
I want to go, Councilor Rivera, you still have the floor if you'd like, or you want to come back? Are you okay? I want to come back to a point that Councilor Garcia made earlier, and I think we ought to put the right thing in the right place. And if I understand correctly, these two, my feeling is these two amendments are designed to speak directly to local preference as something we want to make sure is used properly and also potentially keep it out of the anti-donation problem. There's another question that Councilor Garcia raises, which is not within this language, and that is when we do put the land up for sale, would we want one of the stipulations to be something around you have X amount of time to actually develop it, if private or not private. It seems to me that would something that'd be more agreeable to consider to put into the terms of purchase rather than to embed in this resolution, particularly because these two specific amendments are designed to cure two very specific problems. But there's nothing that would prevent that from being in the offering papers. Is that correct?
Railroad Counselor, there might be nothing to prevent staff from doing that, but it seems like it would be a good idea for governing body to set out their terms now so that you are agreeable to the purchase agreement later.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to spring new purchase agreements terms on you later and then have to go through this again.
Okay. Any other comments about the amendment that's in front of us? I think we're ready to vote. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Yes. This is for the amendment moved by Councilor Lindell and Councilor Romero Worth. And just to clarify, there was a motion by Councilor Romero Worth and Councilor Lindell. So Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Councilor Cassett,
Yes.
Councilor Chavez,
Yes.
Councilor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell, Councilor Rivera. What was that?
That was a no.
Sorry, someone was coughing. Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
Thank you. We now have a motion as amended. Further Discussion? Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give folks more of a context of this because we really didn't provide an introduction. This has been in the works with Councilor Garcia and I for a while as it relates to Las Estrellas master plan, which has been in the works for a very long time. But in 2021, the governing body adopted a resolution, which, by the way, in the memo, it says it was in 2011. So we want to make sure to correct that. That was March 10th, 2021. We had a resolution that required the governing body to approve what we have to do is a public announcement of sale of a city property. And there was an effort by Councilwoman, Vigil Koppler, to try to include a local preference. And there were a lot of things that needed to be clarified and just refined. So Councilor Garcia and I worked on that local preference. And then in the analysis with staff, really looked at a parcel, specifically 6A of that master plan, that has a great potential to do affordable housing. And we own the property, so it was, at least from my point of view, in our best interest to really focus on prioritizing that property as affordable housing. There would be potential for local or not folks to be able to provide RFP to be able to be considered for affordable housing in that area. We put provisions in place in this resolution that kind of outline some of the stipulations and some of the requirements that we were, or the criteria that we would look at for the affordable housing. So I just want folks to know that this is just something that I really feel passionate about. I'm thankful that my colleagues are supporting this. The local preference is just an add-on and an important piece to really trying to support our local economy. And so that's why I worked very diligently with my colleague on this. It took a long time, and we even went out there and looked at the land. So I think it's an important solution. It's not the end-all solution for our affordable housing crisis, but it is a potential for us to be able to focus in on something that we own that has a lot of opportunity. And we don't know what that's going to look like. I just think that there's a lot of, like I said, there's this opportunity that is before us, and we wanted to make sure to take that on. So thank you, Mayor, for also supporting this as we went along this process. And thank you, Councilor Garcia, for all the work.
Thank you.
And staff, my gosh, we work so hard with staff. Thank you so much to the attorney's office and affordable housing office, and just all the folks that were involved with this. It was a lot of work. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Lindell.
Thank you. I just would make one comment that in the future, when we undertake programs like this, I would hope that we would make considerations for women-owned businesses and also veteran-owned businesses. I don't know why those weren't part of this, but I think that in the future, if we're going to do carve-outs for different groups, that those should be included. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor.
Mayor.
Councilwoman.
To respond to that, we actually don't have anything in place for local preference currently that focuses in on women-owned and minority-owned. And I've been actually trying to work on that. It was before the pandemic, and it hasn't come to fruition yet, but still something I want to work on. So if you want to work on it with me, that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments before we, yes, Councilor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to echo the comments made by Councilwoman Villarreal. Absolutely. Thanks, Staff Director Brown, Director Ladd, where's Attorney Salazar? I know she was here. Terry Lease. I mean, this was a big lift, and with lots of brainstorming, figuring out how we can actually put this property to the best benefit of use for the community. And I think what we've arrived at is a game changer. It's a game changer for affordable housing. It's a game changer for our local developers. And I think ultimately it's going to be a game changer for our entire community, in the sense that we constantly talk about affordable housing being on one part of town. Well, this is a part of town where there's a potential for an additional 100 affordable units to be put on the market. Now, the applications that come forth, we'll see if that holds true, but my hope is that we'll meet that mark. And in 10 years, when we look back, we can say, well, look, the affordable housing, I mean, the local preference is a tool that worked for us, and we need to incorporate that in additional tools. So I look forward to seeing how many applications come forward utilizing a local preference. And I agree with Councilor Lindell. Any other opportunities we have to provide benefit to local supporters, I'm fully behind it. And then also want to thank the Santa Fe Home Builders Association. I know we got Miles in the back there, but the rest of his team, I think it's one of those, this is a situation where we as a community are coming together to try to tackle community challenges, and it's going to incorporate and hopefully involve all factions of our community. So thank you. Thank you, staff, and thank you for the community for supporting this.
Thank you, Counselor. Others? Madam Clerk, I think there's no further discussion. Can you call the roll? It's on the motion as amended.
Yes, this is as amended. So, Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Councilor Cassett,
Yes.
Councilor Chavez,
Yes.
Councilor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell, Councilor Rivera, Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
Thank you. In case someone is here tonight who thinks we will be hearing the South Meadows land case, that's not on the agenda tonight. That's been, we've scheduled a special meeting. Madam Clerk, that meeting will take place when?
Mayor, that meeting will take place on February 1st at 7 p.m.
Okay, so I'm not sure everybody got the notice. We had such a jam-packed agenda. South Meadows will happen on the 1st at 7. Is it time, pardon me, is it time to reconsider bringing the Midtown case off the table?
Mayor Weber, councilors, I finished my review and Jeff Norris is cleaning it up and sending it so I can sign off on it, but we could I have a very redlined version.
Councilor Michael Garcia.
To maybe hopefully expedite this, I have a couple questions, and then maybe the amendments might be ready.
Well, first we got to take it off the table. Right? And
Mayor Weber, councilors, yes. So there needs to be a motion to take it off the table. I understand. We should be very close. Yeah.
okay. Can I get a motion to take this item off the table and bring it back?
Move to take off the table?
Oh, she says it is. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we need to vote on bringing it back.
Yes. Councilor Cassett,
Yes.
Councilor Chavez.
Yes.
Councilor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell,
Yes.
Councilor Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
All right, Midtown is back on the table.
Now, before we get into discussion, can we get, did we already have a motion, Madam Clerk, before we tabled it? We did, didn't we?
Yes,
So
Mayor.
now we're ready to entertain questions and presentation from staff and questions from the governing body. If the city attorney is still looking at some matters, let's go to Mr. Brown first to give us the introduction to this, and then Councilor Garcia, you and anyone on the governing body can begin to ask questions, and then we'll look at these amendments. Mr. Brown, is there anything you want to bring to us as we get ready to take this matter up?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a brief preamble to sort of start our conversation. I just want to say that it's been a lengthy community engagement process, and the engagement began in 2018. Some key points I wanted to stress is that this is not a regulatory document, this community development plan, like the master plan or the general plan update or the rezoning. This guides how land will be developed. The master plan, though, regulates what will be developed in that land. So this provide strategies of how we implement our guidelines and engagement from our community as we move forward into this next phase of development at Midtown. So I'm excited about this implementation phase. If approved, there's a lot to be done, and there's a lot of interest in the Midtown parcels, and we are ready to move forward based upon an affirmative vote this evening. So with that, I'll take any questions with my staff.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are there questions for Mr. Brown? Counselor Garcia, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Director Brown, for the updated FIR. I think there was a lot of questions regarding that, and what put forth was definitely helpful to understand kind of what is being proposed and planned over the next couple of years. My one question, clarifying question regarding the FIR is around, I guess, land sales. Because from what I'm reading, there's potentially an expected maybe $12.5 million. I think 10 from Garson, 2.5 other or initial land sales anticipated. Am I understanding that?
Yes, yes. I don't want to really share numbers because there's a competitive aspect to it, but you're kind of correct.
Okay, and I guess my question around that is the money. Where does the money then come to once we sell the land? Because or let me let you answer that first.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, Councilor Garcia, it's a very good question. The land sale money comes to the Economic Development Fund, which we in turn invest in the parcel. So it could be for infrastructure, further infrastructure access, could be for programming, could be for looking at subsidies for any affordable housing that we have together. We worked closely with the Affordable Housing Department. So the money will come to the Economic Development Fund, which will invest into the city, mostly through Midtown. Some may go to other developments, but mostly it's going to go to Midtown for redevelopment.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, Director Brown. And you kind of touched on the end regarding affordable housing. And I do, reason why I bring this up is recently the governing body is 2021, we passed an ordinance updating the stipulations when city-owned property is sold. And we updated it to state that 50% goes to economic development, but then 50% goes to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And I want to make sure that doesn't get lost because that's $6.2 million that out of that's big. That's a huge amount of money. And then, so my follow-up question to that is because there is the Midtown Link overlay, and in that ordinance, the money stays within the overlay. So my question is, based off these numbers, this, 50% would be the 6.25 million goes into Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Just, am I correct in my understanding?
Ms. Latz, Director Latz here too. She will make sure I share that money with her. So.
Okay, but am I correct in understanding that the 6.25 million would be directly invested into the per the Midtown Link overlay ordinance? It would be directly invested in the link or adjoining communities. So it couldn't be, so the 6.25 couldn't be spent anywhere but that particular community.
Yes, and Director Ladd can talk about the housing side, but on the economic development side, keep in mind that this is an opportunity zone. And we're trying to push and promote development inside the opportunity zone. There are actually two of them. One's north of the other, or Midtown is. So it would stay within the Midtown area and within the opportunity zone. We could use it for spurring all types of things, job creation, development of other parcels, et cetera, et cetera. So it would stay inside the Midtown link and inside Midtown because one, it's opportunity zone, but because in the ordinance it is for land within the link area, and Midtown is.
Okay, thank you, Director Brown. I didn't know if Director Ladd had anything to ask. I didn't. Okay. Well, that's all I had. I just want to thank you. Comments regarding, we had some concerns from the community regarding the initial plan. Thank you for taking into consideration those comments and feedback and incorporating it into the plan. It's, I think it's made the plan stronger. So thank you for all of that. And thank you to all the staff that went into putting the plan together. I know Daniel's not with us this evening, but thank please pass along my thanks to him as well.
Thank you very
That's
much.
all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. Other general comments before we get to amendments and the documents that the city attorney is working through. I'll go first, Counselor Cass, and then Counselor Lindell.
Well, I don't have very many general comments. I was going to speak to an amendment, but
And Mayor Weber, Counselor Cassett's amendment has been posted for a while.
yes.
Why don't we go to that first then?
Okay. So where's Andrea? Org Rich. I have an amendment in the packet. It's a little bit long, but I'll go ahead. Shall I read it, or Andrea, why don't you give the wonderful synopsis of what this does? Because that's probably more informative than me just reading this. Thank you.
Mayor, Counselor Cassett, governing body. So the community development plan has at the very end of the plan, I think it's an appendix. Let's see, appendix
C.
That has a listing of how the existing buildings will be utilized. This amendment puts some asterisks on certain portion or certain buildings on the campus that were slated for demolish, but also have been incorporated in certain RFPs for potential reuse should a proposer of a RFP want to reuse or rehabilitate the building. And so what this does is that within the permanent rehab and reuse, we have the Alumni Hall, the barracks, the workshop structure, Driscoll Fitness Center, St. Michael Hall dormitories, St. Michael's cafeteria, and the Oñate Hall, all asterisked as there can be feasibility on whether they should be permanently reused or whether they should be demolished. So that's what it changes. Currently, as they exist in the table, it says that they're supposed to be reused. The next portion of this amendment is to change the term that's on the second page of Appendix C, the short-term use to temporary use. The third amendment is to place under that short-term use demolition use apartments A and B because they are currently being used. Then the fourth is also in Appendix C with the demolishing no reuse to remove those student housing apartments from that section. So 3 and 4 go together. It would be removed from the demolition no reuse and put under the short-term or temporary use section.
Thank you. Do you want to move that amendment?
Yes, move to approve this amendment.
For a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to add this amendment. Is there discussion? Any discussion? Madam Clerk, do you want to call the roll?
Sure, Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell, Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes,
Amendment has been approved.
thank you. Councilwoman Villarreal, there's an amendment B. Is that, which is yours? Do you want to take that up at this time?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, if you refresh PrimeGov, you can see it now. This is a combination of as I was saying, it's kind of stylistic, grammar, some formatting changes, word choices that I felt like were more digestible for the general public. Just consistencies with certain sections. I think when we had our Community Development Commission meeting, there was a need to kind of clarify processes that will happen from this development plan, which is a guide. It's a guiding document. It's not the regulatory arm. So there was a lot of effort by staff to put those definitions in. However, in this case, I don't think they're making it into this document. I don't know if there's anything else that staff, because I was really like cleaning it up and then staff added some of their own. So I agreed to sponsor them. So if there's anything else that staff wanted to add to the mix here.
Do we have a motion so that we can
No,
be
I just
discussing
wanted
this?
her to introduce.
Okay.
If that, we
Sure.
are, I gave her the opportunity to just. Now you may, if you'd like to move this.
Sure, I would, I know there may be some more, and I don't know how we incorporate those definitions later on if we're approving the document tonight, but is there anything staff wanted to add to this before I make that motion?
Mayor, Councilor Villarreal, I did want to explain why the definitions are not here. So the definitions we also have within RFPs that are already out. And so we really didn't have time to correlate them. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Wait, we'll go right ahead, then she'll come next.
So we couldn't correlate the definitions to ensure that all of the documents that we've already sent out and transmitted into the world would meet the definitions that had been drafted. So those were removed to either be utilized in another time, or such terms like metropolitan redevelopment area can be defined by the Metropolitan Redevelopment Act. DDA or disposition development agreement is also defined within the RFP and will be defined also in those documents. So those were some reasons that we did remove those so that we don't have complications later on if they don't match. Otherwise, most of these are revisions that have to do with capitalization, removing certain terms, replacing, who is presenting this community development plan within the city. Some paragraphs have been updated and revised, but maybe you would like to read through them.
It's up to you if you want to go through them. They're replacing certain language sections. They're not changing any intentions or content per se. It's really a cleanup. That's why I wasn't even sure if we needed an amendment sheet like this. It's really long and tedious. It was a long and tedious process to even like provide all these to staff to make sure that they were making those necessary adjustments. So
It seems to me that they're exactly as you described them. This is a cleaning up of what your categories were specific, cleaning up the language, changing the lower the cases to the appropriate case, clarifying some items. I think you're specifically correct that there's no intent changed in the document. You're rather doing a good job of editing and clarifying what's already there. It's a multi-page amendment sheet, and it's in our packets. Is there any question, if you look at them for a minute, are you able to scroll through them? Are there any that catch your eye that you feel any member of the governing body needs further explanation? I think the language that's here is very straightforward. Yeah, Councilor Lindell.
So none of this is substantive. It is merely grammar and writing style, because I can't go through this back to the document in a reasonable time frame.
that's exactly why I wanted you all to see it beforehand. Yeah, I feel like with the edits that I proposed, it's really just the technical changes. If it looks like it's new language, it's actually just rewriting sections that didn't make sense to me. And so we just use language that, like I was saying, was more digestible, at least in my opinion. Maybe it's not for others, but I don't know if Alexandra Ladd wanted to add to that.
Mayor, Councilor Lindell, I wanted to just note that some of the clarifications of language came out of the conversation with the Community Development Commission. They did spend a lot of time reading it, and along with Councilor Villarreal's eagle eyes for all of the grammar and the inconsistencies and wait, you capitalized this word over here. Why isn't it capitalized here? Or should it be not capitalized either place? That kind of detail. There were questions asked by the committee that made it clear, by the commission members, that made it very clear that, as we're sort of buried in the content, we're expressing the language and not realizing that for people who aren't as familiar with it, it sounded confusing in a couple of places and how it would be very easy to just make it clearer. So a lot of the replacement language isn't replacing what it said, it's just making it say it better and more clear.
Counselor Lindell.
So on page 22, it's on the amendment, page 3, number 17 on 22. Under methods of implementation, strike art in public places. Isn't that substantive?
Mayor, Counselor Lindell, so in Exhibit D, which is methods of implementation, there are currently 3 bullet points. So methods of implementation are solicitations and direct negotiations for arts and culture, commercial development, community programming and planning, Metropolitan Redevelopment Act, and then art in public places, which was strike through. That art in public places really isn't a method of implementation in the same way that the other 2 are, which is why it was removed. So that's the reason for it.
That seems substantive to me. And it's not that I think it should be there or that I think it shouldn't be there. Just in reading through this, it does, I can't read through all of this in 4 minutes. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Other questions, comments about this packet of amendments that Councilman Villarreal has undertaken, and I think undertaken with working along with staff to clean up the document. Other comments? Questions? You want to call the roll on the motion?
We need a
First, I
motion.
need a motion.
I thought you made the motion.
I moved, no, not yet. Move to approve Amendment B.
Second.
Yeah, there's a motion and I apologize. I thought we had gotten that on the floor earlier. There is a motion now. If there's further discussion, now would be the time to have it, I think, about the specifics within this amendment, whether art in public places is what the staff thinks, why that would not be appropriate under methods of implementation, or any other language that the governing body members want to take up at this time. I think most of it, it's fair to say, is things like, why do we capitalize indigenous here and not there? Why do we say, do the verbs agree with the nouns? Have we got the correct abbreviations? And so on. Other comments? Could you call the roll, ma'am?
Counselor Lee Garcia. Counselor Michael Garcia.
Yes.
Counselor Lindell.
Abstain.
Counselor Rivera.
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal.
Yes.
Counselor Cassett.
Yes.
Counselor Chavez.
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
Very good. So we now have a main motion as amended and amended. Other Councilor Lindell, did you want the floor this time?
Counselor Garcia and I both pulled this item. Counselor Lee Garcia.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why don't you take the floor then, Councilor Lindell, and then we'll come to you, Councilor.
so I appreciate the update on the FIR. We've gone from 23 or 24 million to 17 million. I'm really not asking any specific questions. I'm just saying that I went through many items on this at finance, and I don't feel like, I think many of those items that I talked about deserved much more time than just being in a document. And we're spending millions. I mean, one thing on the new FIR is $10 million from Garson, but in the request on that, it's a sale or a lease. We don't know which it's going to be. And what if we don't get 10 million? I just find this FIR, it's just asking for too much money with too few specifics for me. And granted, we came from 23 to 17 million, but there's really no explanation about that either. And it's just the number of issues that were in the document. I mean, all these issues that have been brought to us tonight that in amendments that weren't ready to be heard. I mean, they were ready on the part of the counselor, but we're being asked for millions and millions of dollars. And I'm not comfortable with what the document gave us. We went through about 4 weeks at finance of going through different documents. They had numerous mistakes in them. And I just, there's just not enough specifics here for me to support this the way it stands. I think many of the items needed their own, whether it be their own resolution, their own meeting to discuss. I think we probably should have had a special meeting to discuss the entire document. It's a huge amount of information and a huge ask from us, a huge ask from the community. And I can read those documents many times and I still don't know exactly what I'm agreeing to. So those are my comments, Mayor.
Thank you. Counselor Lee Garcia, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had similar questions to what Counselor Michael Garcia had in regards to the FIR and in regards to the disposition of some of the property, and they were answered. And so I don't really need to go into much more questions. You know, this is it's a huge decision, and I think that I always make the statement, do it once and do it right. And I really do hope that through the work of your department that we do it right, because I don't think there's any room to miss this one. It's such a important piece of property to our community and to our city. And I'll just leave it with that. The questions that I had were answered previously, and so I appreciate the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments at this time? Councilwoman Viral.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. After all my edits, I feel better about this document. I mean, I feel like there was just things we had to clean up, but the intention of it, I think, was really a reflection of the culmination of intentional and very rich community engagement processes, more than we've ever had before. And so I feel like I see things in here that we've never even have considered, that I think some of us have wanted to consider. And so I feel good about this document because it's a guiding document. It's not perfect. It doesn't include everything. I thought it was interesting in our conversation with the Community Development Commission is there were some folks that thought that this document didn't do enough, that it wasn't radical enough. And then there were some folks that yeah, I guess it felt like it actually achieved a lot more than we ever have in the past. So I just want to highlight some sections that I think are really important that I'm excited to work on, because some of these things will actually have to be more refined in a resolution form or other kind of policy document. So I think one thing, or the areas that I was really excited about, is talking about housing vouchers and fair housing and neighborhood stabilization, and talking about what economic stability could look like as it relates to job access and job training and career education. And the fact that we have a section that talks about culture and really focuses in on inclusion and diversity. And so that's why I'm supporting this. There's also sustainability strategies that we've talked about, but they're really kind of list them as potential tools. And so that's why I'm really comfortable with this guiding document. I know it wasn't a perfect process to get here, the financials and things that we really wanted to flesh out. I feel more comfortable about the FIR. And I think really the details will be forthcoming in forms of policy and resolutions and RFPs. And so I think that that's where the rubber meets the road. Is that the right way to say it? The rubber meets the road? Yeah. And so I think that this is a good starting place. And I want to thank all the community members and the folks that are in the audience and also listening or not listening, I feel like we have a good roadmap here to start moving forward with Midtown. And there's a lot more to do, but I just wanted to make that statement. And thank you, staff, for all the work that you've done. There's a lot put into this document.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Others? Councillor Cassett.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I agree with what Councilwoman Vidal just stated, and agree that this, and we've said this so many times, and I think it's just so important because maybe it was Councilor Garcia, Quality of Life, who really talked about how, Midtown is going to be this continual process, and really just wanting to make sure that the community is aware of that so that they do stay engaged. Our Midtown engagement partners, thank you so much for all of the time and the work and the effort. And I agree that this is a good document. Is it perfect? Of course not. There's probably things in here that we didn't know that we've missed, and we'll find out later. But that's also why we continue to look at Midtown as an evolving development. It is such an opportunity. And I do think that this calls out and prioritizes a lot of these almost experiments that we've been wanting to look for, or we've been wanting to find avenues for. And I think that commitment that is shown in this document to really looking at equity, looking at culture, looking at history, and how our return on investment is not just financial, but it is social. What Midtown is going to provide for this community, what it could provide for this community if we do it well, is unmeasurable or immeasurable. What is with us in words today? We're not there. But I just really want to thank the community. Thank you so much to staff. Daniel's not here tonight, and some of our other contractors are not here tonight, but thank you to everybody who really put in a lot of this work. And I'm excited to continue to work on it, because Midtown's not done. And this is one that we will be continuing to work on. So thank you for your future work, because we're going to need it. That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Others? I want to, before we vote, I also want to put this into context. Cities are living organisms, and they have to change and they have to adapt. One of the things that's happening across every city in America is an aspiration to make the community more involved at every step of the way in how the city changes, and to make sure that our values are represented in the way we plan and execute our projects. Mr. Blair has a running gag with me that I make up names. There actually is a legendary urban planner named Norm Krumholtz, who was the planning director of the city of Cleveland. And he is generally credited with being the first city planning director in a major American city to acknowledge that urban planning is a moral activity. That when you adopt a plan, you adopt values. When you adopt a plan, you express those values. This is a document which is the third leg of our Midtown stool. There was the zone change, there was the master plan. Now we have a community development plan, which lays out the policies by which we will implement the master plan. And it is a very ambitious statement of our values. As has been said, it speaks directly to neighborhood stabilization, something we've talked about. This actually sets the stage to implement it. We've talked about affordable housing, a minimum of 30% of the housing at Midtown, a minimum, that's a floor, not a ceiling, will be affordable. There will be steps taken so that on an ongoing basis, the programming, the engagement of the community that was so instrumental to getting us to where we are, that will continue on an ongoing basis. And I think it's going to set the stage not only for what happens at Midtown, but what happens in all of our activities and all our development in every part of the city. I think this is a really strong commitment to the kind of city Santa Fe has been and will continue to be in the future. We will be attentive to the needs of every resident as we follow the policies in this document. As been said, we couldn't have done it without the community engagement. We couldn't have done it without our consultants. We absolutely could not have done it without staff and with the engagement of the governing body. This is a really important step forward. We are really on the way with Midtown. There are already 3 RFPs that are out. The next cycle will include the first affordable housing efforts. So I think we can all take heart that we are living up to our values and we are living up to our best selves. And that to me is really the intent and the purpose of this document. Any other comments or questions? We have a motion as amended. Madam Clerk, do you want to call the roll?
Yes, Counselor Lindell,
No.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Mayor Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Motion has been approved as amended.
Thank you. It's about 10 after 7. I would entertain a motion to go to petitions from the floor as a way to adjust our agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to move to petitions from the floor and then back to our regular order after that. Madam Clerk, do you want to call the roll on that, please?
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell, Counselor Rivera, Counselor Mayor Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
So to be clear, we are moving now out of our regular order to petitions from the floor because we have a standing commitment to try to take that up as close to 7 o'clock as we possibly can. If you are here for a matter that does not involve a hearing, one of the hearings on the agenda, then please come up to the microphone. And I'm sure we have some folks on Zoom potentially who would like to participate in petitions from the floor. Again, this is about items other than the public hearings that we will be conducting tonight. And we'd be happy to entertain a 2-minute presentation or comment from anyone who'd like to speak to us.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Alicia Castro Chicol, and I reside in District 1 at 619 Baca Street. I've been a Chainbreaker member for about 8 years. Chainbreaker is a member-based economic and environmental justice organization. We work to expand access to affordable transportation and sustainable communities for workers in the Santa Fe, New Mexico region. Chainbreaker has been organizing around the topic of Midtown since 2018. We held a people's assembly on the campus and we knocked on over 17,000 doors to make that happen. That was the only the beginning, and we haven't stopped knocking. In 2021, Chainbreaker was one of the organizations involved with the Midtown Engagement Partners, an official partnership with the city to gather community voices and visions for the future of Midtown. We submitted a report detailing the guidance from the community, ideas which were incorporated into the plan, now approved by the city. We appreciate the city council's voting to approve the plan. This plan is a culmination of many years of organizing in our neighborhoods. Together, we have accomplished so much, and we know we will need to accomplish so much more. This is a generational project, but the opportunity for future success depends on decisions made right now. We appreciate your vote in support of the community and in your investment of time and resources. There remains much more work ahead, and we look forward to continuing to engage the community, protect the surrounding neighborhoods from displacement, and work with the city to build the best possible outcomes for Midtown. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Anyone else who wants to take advantage of the petitions from the floor that's in front of us now? Again, if it's for an item later in the agenda that's a hearing, please don't come up. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone on the Zoom room?
Yes, Mayor, we do. We have Miss Stephanie Benanato. Stephanie?
Yes, I just got unmuted. Can you hear me, please?
Hold on, Stephanie, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Lawrence, can you unmute Stephanie so we can hear her?
Am I unmuted? Hello? Can you hear me?
Stephanie, we still can't hear you. Hold on 1 minute.
Is it still muted or what do we have?
You unmuted. There's just,
Can you hear me?
yes, Stephanie, we can't hear you, even though you're unmuted and I see your microphone moving. Hold on one moment.
Let me try to change my microphone just a minute.
Yep. We're going to try to fix this technical glitch, so please stand by.
Could you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
If you're wondering why there's silence and you're listening or watching, we're trying to fix a technical problem so that someone can, in the Zoom connection, address the governing body. And right now the unmute is not working. So please give us a minute.
Hello? 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 Can you see me or hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Because I can see my microphone working. Can you hear me? Hello?
Mayor, I'm not sure why we can't hear Stephanie on our end. She can be heard on YouTube.
Wait, should I just go ahead and say what I want to say so that it's recorded on YouTube? I know it, excuse me, I know it's working from my end because I can see the little icon moving. I've tested it. I don't know what else to do to make it go through on your side. And last night, again, the H board web link, Zoom link did not work properly, and neither did the webinar ID. So I couldn't even go through my own account to get to the meeting. Took 35 minutes to get a proper link. What are we gonna do? Hello? Hello, do you want me to call in? What do you want me to do?
No, Stephanie, oh. Hold on, I'm actually gonna stream you through the microphone on my laptop until we can figure out why the audio in the chambers isn't recording you. So hold on one moment.
Okay.
Stephanie,
Stephanie, go ahead.
You're gonna get a lot of, are you getting feedback? Hello, are you getting feedback?
Stephanie. So when I have to talk to you on my microphone, I'm getting feedback, but we can hear you. So when I say Stephanie talk, if you want to talk, then we should be good.
Okay, and I just asked for a little indulgence here because it's been a little distressing trying to get through. I sent you all a proposal to change the discussion part of the land use appeal provisions that would actually allow an appellant who is often a public participant who gets shut out at that discussion stage without having any notice or ability to be heard. I think it's a long time coming, and I think if you all are going to put your money where your mouth is about public participation, that this is a step that you can take pretty quickly to solve what is, I think, a pretty glaring due process problem. You also have due process problems with the BOA and the fact that they passed a variance for a non-conforming sign when there is an ordinance that clearly says they cannot do that. And they were totally misadvised by the city, the attorney staff member and the land use member. And I've been asking the city attorney what she's going to do about it. So far, no answer. Last night was really horrible at the H board, where you have one member who keeps insisting, not for the first time, maybe for the 20th or more time, that he does not have to observe the law, that, why bother? They can be creative. And then the way he treated the staff attorney was really horrible. And so I have sent you printed petitions from the floor. They are part of the public record. I'm asking you to really look at this, because this is the kind of thing that really sows distrust of the city, and particularly land use. It needs to be cleaned up, and we need competent, honest people who are not spending hours with developers' agents to get development projects that are, relatively simple approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry for the technical glitch. I appreciate your patience. Are there others in the Zoom area who are waiting to participate with petitions from the floor?
Mr. Mayor, while she looks, if I can just interject quickly, I was at a legislative hearing yesterday where they had the same technical issue. And I think this is just something that is a new normal as we jump deeper into a hybrid mentality.
Do we have other hands up? No.
No, Mayor, we do.
In that case, Madam Clerk, we'll go back to the regular order of our business, which you should take us to the next item on the agenda.
Mayor, the next item on our agenda is matters from the city manager.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Hope you all are doing well. Thank you again for your patience while we work through these tech issues. It is just part of us jumping into the 21st century. First of all, I want to highlight for the councilors that we are going live with our Munis upgrade later this week. The current version of the system is going to come down at 5 o'clock on Thursday night. We'll go live on Friday morning, and it will the staff, IT primarily, finance staff and HR will be working around the clock over the weekend to stand up the new system. We'll have a readout come Monday afternoon, probably for everybody, but it has really been an extraordinary effort led by Manuel Gonzalez and his team, Bernadette Salazar and her team, and Emily Oster and her team. A significant amount of training done across the city, really creative and innovative ways to help staff come to really feel comfortable with the new system. And I'm very proud of everyone who's worked on this. And so we'll keep you posted as this moves forward. We'll flag for you all at our last regularly scheduled meeting. You all approved an amendment regarding a land purchase on Richards Avenue. The Game and Fish Commission meeting to consider that amendment that you all approved is this coming Friday. Starts at 9, ends at noon. We will know Friday afternoon, or if someone's watching live Friday morning, if they have accepted the amendment. If that's the case, we'll move forward with a new purchase price. If they reject it, there may be a need for us to call a special meeting early the next week to take some action, or for me to take some action as well. But we'll keep you posted about what's coming forward with that regard. We will be announcing hopefully later this week our new public utilities director. I want to make it a point to thank Jesse Roach, our water division director, who has agreed to step up and serve as the interim public utilities director. He's really hit the ground running, and we're grateful for him doing this. Similar to the IT comment, I just want to flag, I had the good fortune of traveling to Washington, D.C. last week with Mayor Weber to participate in the U.S. Conference of Mayors winter meeting. It's an extraordinary thing to see mayors from the big cities and their entourages roll up in Suburbans with lots of staff, and small town mayors show up with nobody. And despite that, it was really interesting to see that what is affecting Santa Fe is affecting Pensacola, is affecting Tulsa, is affecting Los Angeles. And the takeaway, which is sort of nice sometimes when you get out of Santa Fe or get out of City Hall, is it really was a reminder to me, and I think to the mayor, about the extraordinary work our staff is doing and the great place Santa Fe really is in compared to a lot of other communities in the country. And so it really was a wonderful reminder for me about the extraordinary work that our team is doing here in Santa Fe. And to that end, I just want, and then I'll be done, is just to sort of flag that so many team members here at the city have been burning the midnight oil for months now relating to some of the land use cases, South Meadows, the old Pecos Trail case that you all dealt with, our IT staff that's around the clock trying to make sure things work, our city clerk staff, the city attorney staff, police, fire. We've got a great team, and I just wanted to say out loud again how grateful I am for the round the clock work that our team does. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is matters from the city attorney.
Mayor, councilors, I have not sent a formal announcement about this yet, but some of you know that I think Andrea Salazar has been recruited to the state auditor's office to be general counsel there. So I think this is her last regular governing body meeting with us. She's in the back over there. She'll be joining us in executive session, but I did want to make a public thank you while she's here still for all the work she's done for the city of Santa Fe in the last almost 4 years. She's been a huge part of the team on Midtown, the rail yard, our acquisition of the Santa Fe Estates, which now is the Las Estrellas project that was discussed earlier tonight, on all the LIDA projects while she's been here, IDAs, and numerous other economic development, asset management, arts and culture matters, and community services. So in relation to homelessness and all those projects, library, rec facilities, she's been a key member on our team. So we are going to miss her, but congratulations, Andrea. We'll have various send-offs for her in the next week or so. But I did want to publicly acknowledge that, and we're sad to see her go, but we know she's going to be having a very important statewide role, working with all the local governments of the state, and all the state agencies of the state, and all the universities of the state, many agencies. So good luck to you, Andrea. And with that, we also have a recommended quarterly update of attorney-client privilege discussion of pending and threatened litigation. And that's under the Open Meetings Act, Section 10-15-1, Part H7.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we enter an executive session pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, Section 10-15-1H, Subpart 7, for discussion of threatened or pending litigation in which the governing body is or may become a participant.
Second.
Can you call the roll, please?
Yes, Counselor Lindell. Counselor Rivera.
Yes.
Counselor Merriworth.
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal.
Yes.
Counselor Cassett. Yes. Counselor Chavez.
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia.
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia.
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes. For the
Motion.
benefit of people who are here for other items or are gauging the time when we'll be back to reconvene, Madam City Attorney, do you have a sense? Are we talking about a half an hour? What's our?
However, councilors, I think it's going to be relatively short. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe half.
So if you're waiting for something, we'll be back as quickly as we can. And we'll then take up matters as rapidly as possible. Thank you.